So thank you everyone for coming. It's lovely to have all of you to listen to our budgeting workshop. We're going to talk a little bit about how to get started and give you guys some resources. And we're going to be hearing from some of our education members. But the meeting will be led by me, Natalie, who's the president, if you guys haven't been here, and our vice president, Grace.
Hello. So we have a quote here. This is from Dave Ramsey, and it says, "A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went."
And so in today's discussion, we're going to start with where your funds are coming from, and then we're going to move on to what you'll be spending on, then how to start tracking, and we're going to give you some resources on how to do that with a small activity at the end.
Hello. So we're just going to start about talking about where your money is currently coming from and the current funds you have.
So for savings accounts, a lot of people in college already have these. It's okay if you don't, and it's okay if you don't have very much money in them. Any amount is fine to start, and any time is fine to start. Another important place to have your money is an emergency fund. And this can be helpful for big purchases or if something goes wrong that you're not really planned for, that having this money would be useful. The best kind of account for creating a budget is the PNC Virtual Wallet Student Account. There's no minimum deposit and there's no service fees for 6 years. There's different accounts for checking and savings, and there's also tools to help called the Money Bar and Free Balance to show what your budget is and the areas that you spend money in.
So you also have hopefully money at home or in your wallet. So that's what you currently can give out, normally cash or like a debit card. That is kind of, you should have that saved, and that's just not really super secure because it's not in the bank, but it's also just a great way to always have funds to go somewhere. You also probably have a job. Some people have a job that can give them that income, and it's important to understand that if you do have a job, there are certain income taxes that you have to pay for that. Those include both local, state, and federal income taxes. So some people might have a job only at home when they go home for breaks, or some people might have a job here in Oxford as well. Other people might have unpaid jobs such as internships or research with professors, and those often add to your resume and are more valuable in terms of future opportunities.
There's also other places that your money could be, such as in Venmo and O2, or by others, in cash or gift cards. And these are all things that it's very important to keep track of so that you know how much money you actually have and not just, oh, there's some money over there, like I'll use that, and then you go to use it, there's actually nothing there. There's also some help from parents in most cases, and that's important to remember, but not to rely on, because sometimes parents don't have all the money in the world that they can give you, or they might feel like you're asking for too much.
So before making a budget that caters to your goals and things like that, what you want to be spending on in the future, you should look at your past spending history. So this can be, just scrolling through the app that you use for your debit account or something, looking at the expenses that you usually have. Maybe you go to Chipotle or Starbucks, or shopping at like Urban Outfitters. You just want to go through and see where your money has been going in the past. And you might want to look at your reoccurring wants. So maybe every year you like to go on vacation, or you're thinking about going on spring break. You like to make donations to your church every month, or somewhere, an organization you care about. Or maybe you like to purchase more expensive fashion items if that's important to you. So you want to keep that in mind when you are looking back on your history, and you need to think about where you can cut your spending in order to make room for those reoccurring wants. So maybe you can get Starbucks only 3 times a week instead of every day. so you can save up for your spring break or something like that. So next you need to set financial goals. This is kind of similar to your reoccurring wants, but it kind of occurs in a different timeline. So present expenses, a goal would probably be for you to pay your rent every month, or maybe buy your groceries every week. If you go out with your friends on the weekends, or you want to buy a new pair of jeans, those are present expenses, reoccurring ones that you would need to account for. Next, you need to think about maybe post-college, or if you're a freshman or sophomore, in a few years, whether you're taking out college loans, if you're thinking about applying to grad school, things like that aren't in the near future, but they are coming up. I know I'm a senior, so I'm definitely thinking about having to pay for maybe relocating for a job. So I'm trying to spend a little bit less money this year than in the past, so I have extra money to do so. And then you also want to think about long term. So what do you want to do in the next 5 to 10 years? So I would say probably within 10 years, I would hope to be maybe buying a house or something like that, or maybe I might need a new car. And those things might seem far away, but if you account for them sooner, you'll feel less stressed in the long term. And then maybe you'll have even more money than you would have since you're planning early. You also, with these things, you might want to think about an emergency fund, which is, a long-term goal or expense. And this would be about 8 months usually of your expenses. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
So there are a ton of different ways that you can save as a college student, specifically for college students. You can start with having a part-time job. Like we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of opportunities for part-time jobs on the campus or off the campus in the surrounding areas. You can also buy used or rent textbooks, not buying them from the bookstore. It's usually cheaper, like using an account such as Chegg. You can apply for different scholarships. You don't need to just apply to the scholarships for the school, but you can also apply to many different scholarships, random ones. There's also student discounts on almost anything you can think of. One popular one is Spotify offering a discount for college students, but you guys can also get free subscriptions to things such as Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal. And then you can also manage your spending outside your meal plan. So don't spend all of your dining dollars right away and, allocate them throughout the semester. And then you can spend within your meal plan first and then spend your dining dollars after as an easier way of saving money. And then how to start paying off your college loans. So I recommend researching and then acting on it. So you want to see that what the federal loan grace period, which is basically the period before you need to start making payments, ends once you graduate, drop below half-time employment, or leave school. You also want to make sure you know what loans you have taken out. So direct subsidized, unsubsidized, federal family education loans. They usually allow a 6-month grace period after college. And then there's also a thing called forbearance of loans. So you won't have to make a payment, or you can temporarily make a small payment through an application. You have to fill out a whole application for it. But the forbearance of loans won't help you make any progress towards paying off your loan. So when you finally figure out this big chunk of money, let's say $10,000 that you need to start paying off after college, it can be really intimidating. So you might want to start planning ahead for that and putting aside a little bit at a time so that it doesn't come after college and you'll have a big bill on your hands, but you will have some saved off that you've done over time. And when you're gradually putting that money aside and you're putting it in your savings, you can actually put it in a less risky investment so that it grows a lot more than when you're, that it grows a lot more in in difference with the savings account. So that's what we're going to be talking about in our later workshops on how to start doing that, but start thinking of how to do it right now.
So now we're going to talk about tracking your spending, why and how. First, I'm going to go ahead if you want to switch it, Natalie, the next slide.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk about why you should track your spending. So the first thing I would say, almost the most important, is to limit wasteful spending. Like I said before, when you're looking back on your past history before you make your budget, and even as you make your budget, you might be spending more on something than you thought you were. A lot of small things add up to a larger amount than you probably would like. So just being able to track that and see how much you're actually spending will help limit wasteful spending. It also helps set financial goals. Like I said before, you might have some long, short-term present goals, and you might look at those in relation to what you're spending now and seeing if they're achievable for you, when they are, just based on how your spending is going. You can also catch fraudulent activity. So I know personally this happened to me recently, where I went in and checked my bank account just to see how things were doing in there, and there were some charges I didn't recognize. So since I was checking pretty frequently, I was able to catch those things about 2 days after they happened, and then they were resolved. Whereas if maybe it happened 2 months or a month prior, I wouldn't have noticed. And obviously you want to keep all of your own money in there, spent only by you. So you can also actively just see how much you have in your account. I know some of us, including myself, are guilty of not wanting to check your bank account after like an expensive weekend or something. But you don't want to be surprised. It's better to know, in my opinion, than to go back and think you have more than you actually do. So now we're going to talk about ways to organize your spending and your budget. So there are a few ways you can do this. You can have a section for necessities and then have the rest allocated to dispensables, wants, other things that you don't have to pay for, but might want to. You can also look at short-term needs versus long-term goals in your organization. You can also make sections based on stores you frequent. So here in Oxford, I always buy my groceries at Kroger, so I might have just a section for that because I obviously know what I'm buying there. And then you can rank them by importance. So, allocate first money for the things that you have to pay for, and then as you go down the list, it would be less necessary things.
So here are some other example sections that you might want to look at. They're a little bit smaller than those other broader ones. First, we have necessities, which includes your rent, insurance, utilities, groceries, and then you want to split it from the necessities to the wants, which are entertainment, going out, eating out, shopping, all that different stuff. And when you're looking to where you want to cut your spending, you want to look at that middle section, the wants, rather than the necessities, because it's usually easier to cut your wants rather than stuff that you actually have to pay for. And then you also might want a section for your saving versus investing. So we were talking about previously, those short versus long-term goals, and then also putting aside money that you want to invest so you have something growing for you. And when you want to decide these amounts, it's important to look at your past previous budget on what you need to spend, and then allocating certain percentages to your different spending. So you can make sure that these can change over time, but when you're setting them, you want to first find out what percentage and amount goes into each category, and then you want to set new guidelines that you're going to follow within the future. So a popular one that was recently popularized by Elizabeth Warren is the 50-30-20 rule. So 50% of your budget is going towards your needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% towards your savings. This is just one guideline that people use, but you can obviously make your own, and I encourage you to make your own based on your own personal budget. There are tons of different tracking mediums that you can use these budgets for. So before, I used a notebook where I would take all my receipts and then I would write down all of the stuff that I was spending on and color coding it. There are also easier ways of doing that, like an Excel spreadsheet, which we have an example of next. Some different apps we're going to talk about, and then you can also use an online baking website to make your budget.
So some of the apps we did research on, the first one is YNAB, which stands for You Need a Budget. It's a free app that has like a proven method that comprises of 4 rules to follow in order to learn how to budget properly. Some things are, so users have access to real information, and the app makes it easy to share finances with a partner. So if you're married or you want to share that with whoever you want, they make it easy to do that. The app allows users to easily track their goals through reports, and they offer free online workshops and personal support, which would be nice. The next one is Mint, and it is also free, and it makes it easy for users to see all their information in one place, including bills, credit scores, and more, which is, I think, their biggest thing, it all being in one place and easy to access. The app automatically updates and puts information into categories in order for users to see everything in a simple way, and they give tips and recommendations on how to best find savings. And the last app is Simplify, which is not free. They do give a 30-day free trial, but then after that, there are multiple payment options. And this app gives suggestions on what users can change in order to save money, and their biggest selling point is that you can create your own categories in order to view your finances in ways that you prefer. So yeah.
Thank you. So we do have some examples, which I can show you guys right now that we made, but you're free to use your own. So here is one example budget that we have where it calculates your totals at the bottom, and it's per month. You can obviously change all of these different categories, and then we have our necessities versus dispensable, and you're just adding them up, and by the end of the month, here is what the total budget looks like. So I'll be sending this out and you'll be able to access it. And then we also have an Excel budget, which I use this one personally. Over here, see, I have my different expenses, and I have them color coded in this section. So when I type,
you can see yours.
You can't see the example budget?
I can't see your example budget.
Okay. In that case,
we'll be sending out the links to these too.
Okay. It's just coded in a way that helps color code the specific sections. So we'll see it later. Okay.
So I know making a budget is great and tracking your spending, but you have to make sure you actually stick to it. So like we talked before, you want to set goal percentages of your income or goal values for each month, what you need to spend on, what you want to spend on. So if you go into wherever you track your budget in an app, in Excel, just in a notebook, and you see that, you know, we're only halfway through the month, but you've almost reached your limit on, you know, going out to eat, maybe cut back on that. And you might notice that maybe you haven't spent as much on groceries. So you just want to make sure that you keep yourself in check and not just look at your budget at the end of the month and the beginning of the month, but, you know, as you progress, as you put things into there, if it's not an automatic service.
So for podcasts, we have Her Money, which discusses the psychology of money, and it digs into money issues with women in their minds and everything. Planet Money is a long-running NPR podcast with explanations on how money rules the world. Bad with Money has interviews with experts and personalities, and a non-expert named Gabby Dunn kind of leads it, and she talks about awkward personal questions about money and spending it. Freakonomics Radio is not necessarily about money or budgeting, but focuses more on various mind-blowing correlations in economics. Millennial is about covering everything from applying to jobs to what happens when you sell a house, talks about challenges with money and making it throughout the world. Paychecks and Balances is a more upbeat and lighthearted discussion about work and money. And then one that I specifically looked at was the podcast called Listen, Money Matters. Discusses the biggest areas of personal finance, not necessarily just budgeting, but also investing, paying off debt, income growth. And it's a great way to introduce yourself to like tough topics in a non-intimidating way. So it kind of eases the process more. And then for books, we had The Financial Diet by Chelsea Fagan and Lauren Verhage. It's for people who don't really tend to think about personal finance, brings tools for creating a budget and teaches you how to implement various techniques into your everyday life. And then there's also Broke Millennial by Eric Lowry. It's a step-by-step guidance to become a financially savvy know-it-all with simple advice and comedic personal stories.
And then I also included Women in Money by Susie Orman. I recommend this book to almost everyone that I meet because it gives a really good rundown of almost all the purchases, the big ones that you're going to be making within your life, how to handle those, and giving you good steps to start making a plan for your lifestyle and a budget.
And then for websites, we had Wisebread, which is a large community of bloggers, and it helps you live on a budget. And then it also has personal finance resources with tips and suggestions to be more frugal. And then it also has a section with like best deals. And it has online deals with coupons, promo codes, and other sales. We have Money Crashers, which is like everyday useful tips to save money, educates people in making wise financial decisions. And then it also has information on credit and debit, and then other things like investing, education, real estate. And then there's also Get Rich Slowly, which has financial resources where people comment, share ideas, ask questions. So it's more like social media based. And then Investopedia provides education on investing and finance. And then one of the ones that I looked at was collegebudget.com. It's dedicated to providing discounts on things like clothes, food, electronics. And then it offers money saving benefits on large purchases such as textbooks and student loans. So it's like specifically made for college students. So I definitely recommend that one.
Thank you. So you can connect with us through our Instagram, MU_WWI, where we post almost always about our workshops and more fun tips and tricks to becoming more financially savvy. And then if you would like to join Women Who Invest to get our email updates with some different opportunities and when our budgets our workshops are coming out, then you can add us on the hub and we will be sure to accept you.